No. The call came in at 2014 in the morning. I know the exact time because I'd been lying awake anyway. The way men my age do. Staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Thinking about nothing and everything at once. My phone was on the nightstand, screen down, and when it lit up and buzzed, my first thought was that something had happened to my brother Ray. He'd had some heart trouble the year before. Nothing serious, the doctor said. But nothing serious has a way of turning serious at 2 in the morning. I grabbed the phone. It wasn't Ray. It was my granddaughter. I should explain something. Most people, when they hear granddaughter, picture a little girl in pigtails. Maya is 17. She's sharp and funny, and she has her grandmother's eyes. God rest her soul. And she doesn't call me unless she needs something real. We text. We send each other ridiculous videos about dogs. We have a whole language built out of inside jokes that would make no sense to anyone else. She has never, in 17 years, called me at 2014 in the morning. I answered before the second buzz finished. Maya. What I heard on the other end of the line made me sit straight up in bed. She was crying. Not the kind of crying that sounds like crying. The kind that sounds like someone trying very hard not to, and failing. Small, swallowed sounds, like she was somewhere she didn't want anyone to hear her. Grandpa. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm at Riverside General. I didn't know who else to call. I was already out of bed, already reaching for my pants on the chair by the window. Are you hurt? What happened? A pause. Too long. Mom's here, she finally said. And Marcus. She said his name the way you'd say the name of something you'd found dead on the road, flat, careful, like even the word itself was something to be handled with caution. Marcus Hale had been living with my daughter Diane for 2 years. I had met him 4 times. Each time, something in my chest had gone tight and quiet, the way it does when you're driving on an icy road. That animal alertness, that instinct you can't fully explain. He was too smooth, too quick with the right thing to say. He laughed at the right moments and deflected at the right moments. And every time I tried to actually look at him directly, really look at him, he'd already moved on to something else. Diane thought I was being a protective old man. Maybe I was. I'm on my way, I said. Don't hang up. Grandpa, you don't have to, Maya. I said her name quietly, but I put something into it. The thing that 63 years on this earth gives you, if you paid any attention at all. I'm on my way. Are you somewhere safe right now? Another pause. I'm in the bathroom, she said. Off the waiting room. Good. You stay there until I text you that I'm in the parking lot. Okay? Okay, I love you. I love you too, Grandpa. Her voice cracked on the last word just slightly, and then she got it back under control. That restraint broke my heart, more than the crying had. I drove to Riverside General in 19 minutes. I know the speed limit. I was not driving the speed limit. The waiting room of any emergency room at 2:30 in the morning tells you a lot about the world. There's a particular kind of exhaustion in those plastic chairs. A particular quality of fluorescent light that seems designed to remove all pretense. I spotted Diane immediately. She was sitting near the far wall, her arms crossed tight over her chest, her face doing the thing it did when she was trying to look calm and wasn't. She was 41 years old, and she looked younger than that usually, but not tonight. Marcus was beside her. He stood when he saw me walk in. He had the kind of build that looked like it used to be athletic and had softened at the edges, and he was wearing a gray t-shirt and jeans like he'd dressed in a hurry. He extended his hand. I looked at it for a moment. I shook it. I am 63 years old, and I was raised in North Carolina by a man who believed that courtesy was non-negotiable, that you could despise someone completely and still look them in the eye. I shook Marcus Hale's hand, and I kept my face neutral. George, he said. My name in his mouth always sounded slightly wrong, like he was pronouncing a foreign word he'd only ever read. Didn't know Diane called you. She didn't, I said. I turned to my daughter. Where is Maya? Diane's eyes went somewhere complicated. She's with the doctor. They're just finishing up the x-rays. She paused. She fell, Dad, going down the stairs. You know how clumsy she is. I have known Maya since she weighed 6 pounds and 4 ounces. I have watched her grow up in that specific way that grandfathers do, which is different from the way fathers watch their children grow, because grandfathers have already seen the whole arc once and know what to look for. Maya is not clumsy. Maya has been a dancer since she was 8 years old. She has the kind of body awareness that comes from 10 years of training. The spatial intelligence, the balance, the instinctive knowledge of where her limbs are in space. I said none of this. I want to see her, I said. They'll come get us when. I want to see her now. Something moved across Marcus's face. It was quick, like a shadow crossing a wall, and then it was gone and the smooth, pleasant expression was back. Totally understand, George, he said. She gave us all a scare. I went to the desk. The intake nurse, a heavy-set woman with kind eyes and the efficient manner of someone who has seen everything twice, looked up at me. My granddaughter was brought in, I said. Maya Chen. I'm her grandfather, George Chen. I'd like to be with her. She typed something. Sir, the patient currently has family with her. I understand. I'd like to let her know I'm here and see if she wants me with her. I kept my voice even. She called me. She's 17 years old, and she called me at 2 in the morning. I think that means something. The nurse looked at me for a moment. Then she picked up a phone and said something into it quietly. She put it down. I'll have someone come get you, she said. The young doctor's name was Dr. Abrams. She was maybe 35, with her hair pulled back and the particular economy of movement that emergency medicine teaches you. She led me down a corridor and stopped outside a curtained bay. Mr. Bzusham Chen, she said, and her voice dropped in a way that made my stomach turn over. Before you go in, Maya has a fracture of the distal radius. Her right wrist. How bad? It's a clean break. She'll need a cast for 6 weeks. She'll heal fully. She paused, and in that pause was something I was not prepared for. Sir, the mechanism of the injury that was described to us, a fall down carpeted stairs, is not consistent with the pattern of this fracture. The corridor seemed to go very still. What do you mean? I asked, though some part of me already knew. Dr. Abrams chose her words carefully, the way medical professionals do when they are saying something important between the lines of what they're actually saying. A fall down stairs typically produces impact fractures or fractures consistent with a defensive landing. What we call a foos injury, fall on outstretched hand. That would be a different pattern. She looked at me steadily. Maya's fracture is consistent with torsional force. Twisting, it's the kind of fracture we see when a limb is grabbed and rotated against its natural range of motion. I put my hand on the wall. Just for a second. Just to have something solid under my palm. She's been calm, Dr. Abrams said quietly. Very calm. The kind of calm that sometimes worries us more than the opposite. Another pause. She asked if you were here yet. 4 times. I'm here, I said. She pulled back the curtain. Maya was sitting on the edge of the examination table, her right arm in a temporary splint, a thin hospital blanket across her lap. She was wearing the same oversized sweatshirt she'd had on in the last photo she'd sent me 3 days ago. A photo of her and her best friend at a football game, both of them making ridiculous faces at the camera. She had looked happy in that photo, the kind of happy that is entirely uncomplicated. She did not look like that now. When she saw me, something in her face did what a face does when it has been holding itself together very hard for a long time, and something safe finally arrives. Not crying exactly, more like the muscles just released, like a fist slowly opening. I crossed the room and put my arms around her very carefully, avoiding the splint, and she pressed her face against my shoulder and breathed. We stayed like that for a moment. Okay, I said finally, pulling back just enough to look at her. Tell me. She glanced at the curtain. Behind it, somewhere down the corridor, were her mother and Marcus. They said I fell, she said. I heard what they said. I kept my voice low. I want to hear what happened. Her good hand, the left one, was in her lap. She looked down at it. A habit I recognized. Her grandmother used to do the same thing when she was choosing words. We got into it, Maya said. Me and Marcus. Mom was out. She went to get food for dinner. She was gone, maybe 20 minutes. She stopped. Take your time. It's been building up for a while. He has all these rules. About the house, about where I can go, about who I can talk to. And tonight I just... She pressed her lips together. I said something. I said his rules were ridiculous, and he wasn't my father, and he didn't get to talk to me like that. What did he do? Her jaw tightened. He grabbed my wrist, my right one. He said if I was going to act like a child, he'd treat me like one. She paused. He twisted it. I heard it before I felt it. This sound. And then I was on the floor and he was standing over me, and he said if I told anyone he did it on purpose, no one would believe me over him. I sat with that for a moment. In 63 years, I have learned that some moments require you to sit with him, to let the full weight of what you've heard land on you completely before you speak. Otherwise, you say things driven by the heat of it, and heat is not always what's needed. Did your mother see any of it? No. She came home right after. He had already. Maya swallowed. He told her I tripped on the stairs coming down to show him something I'd hurt my wrist on. And her voice did something then, something small and fractured. She just believed him. She didn't even ask me. She just looked at him when he explained it and nodded. I thought about Diane's face in the waiting room, arms crossed, trying to look calm. Is this the first time he's grabbed you? Maya was quiet for too long. Maya, he's pushed me before. Twice. He grabbed my arm once and left a bruise, but I wore long sleeves and didn't say anything because she stopped. Started again. Because I knew how Mom would react, and I didn't want to be the person who broke everything up. There it is. That is the thing that lives inside every child in this situation, the terrible backwards logic that makes them feel responsible for the violence being done to them. The idea that they are the variable, that if they can just adjust themselves correctly, become smaller and quieter and less, the problem will stop. I had seen it before in other families, and it never got easier to hear. None of this is yours to carry, I said. You understand me? Not 1 ounce of it. She looked at me, her grandmother's eyes. What are you going to do? She asked. The right thing, I said, which is what I should have done 2 years ago. I found Dr. Abrams at the nurse's station. I need to understand something, I said quietly, about the protocol here. She turned to face me fully. You said the fracture pattern is inconsistent with the reported mechanism. I kept my voice level and low. I need to know what your obligations are, as a physician. Dr. Abrams held my gaze. Healthcare providers are mandatory reporters. Mr. Pertov, Chen. When the presentation is inconsistent with the explanation, and particularly when a minor is involved, we are legally required to file a report with Child Protective Services. We are also required to notify law enforcement. She paused. I've already made the call. An officer will be here within the hour. I exhaled. Something in my chest that had been wound tight since the phone rang at 2014 loosened, just slightly. Does my daughter know? We are informing her now. I looked down the corridor in the direction of the waiting room. Okay, I said. I need a few minutes before the officer arrives. Mr. Chen. I'm not going to do anything foolish, I said. I'm 63 years old. I have a bad hip, and I haven't been in a fight since 1987, and I lost that one. A pause. I just need to talk to my daughter, Dr. Mai. Abrams studied me for a moment. Then she nodded. I found them still in the waiting room. Marcus had gotten coffee from the machine in the corner, and he was standing by the window with it, looking at his phone with the ease of a man who believes he's handled a difficult situation. That ease, that particular posture of confidence, It did something to the temperature of the air around me. I walked past him without stopping and sat down in the chair next to Diane. She looked at me. She could read me the way daughters can read fathers. The thing you share with someone who has known your face their whole life. "Dad," she said, and her voice was warning me off something. "She didn't fall," I said. "Dad, Diane." I turned to look at her directly. "The doctor told me the fracture is not consistent with a fall. Torsional fracture. Do you know what that means?" I waited. "It means someone grabbed her wrist and twisted it." Across the room, something changed in Marcus's posture. Subtle. The kind of thing you wouldn't notice if you weren't watching for it. He didn't look up from his phone. Diane's arms were still crossed. "You don't know what you're talking about. You weren't there." Marcus explained exactly what Maya told me what happened. Maya is a 17-year-old girl who doesn't like Marcus and never has. She has reasons to. "She heard the bone break," I said. "Before she felt the pain. She heard it." Diane stopped. "And this isn't the first time he's put his hands on her. He's pushed her twice, left a bruise on her arm that she covered with long sleeves because she was trying to protect you." I let that land. Your child was protecting you. From information that would upset you. That's what it's come to, Diane. The room was very quiet. The fluorescent lights hummed. "You weren't there," Diane said again, but her voice had changed. Something had gone out of it. "No," I said. "I wasn't. I should have been paying closer attention. That's something I'll carry." I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. The way you look at someone you've known their entire life, someone whose face you were one of the first to see. But I'm here now. And so is a police officer who's going to be here in about 45 minutes because the doctor filed a mandatory report. And you need to decide, right now, before that officer arrives, whose side of that room you're standing on. Marcus said from the window, "George, I think you need to calm down. This is getting... Don't." I said it once. I didn't raise my voice. "Do not speak to me right now." He looked at me for a moment. Then he looked at Diane. And in that look, that quick sideways check, that slight hardening around the eyes, I saw something I recognized. I had seen it in the faces of men like this before. The calculation, the assessment of whether the room was still controllable, whether the narrative was still intact. Diane saw it too. I watched it happen. The way her eyes moved from me to him and back again. The way she processed something she had perhaps been refusing to process for a long time. There is a moment, in certain situations, where a person sees clearly what they've been looking at all along, where all the small things they had explained away, the dismissive words, the controlling behavior, the way he'd positioned himself as the authority in her own home, reassemble into a shape that can no longer pretend is something else. Diane uncrossed her arms. She stood up. She walked past me down the corridor toward her daughter. Marcus started to follow, and I stepped into his path. I am not a physically imposing man. I am 63, somewhat broad in the shoulders still, with a bad hip and reading glasses in my breast pocket. But I am my father's son, and my father was a man who understood that presence is not about size. "You should sit down," I said quietly. "And you should stay there. The police are coming." The officer who arrived was a young woman named Ramirez, compact and serious, with a notepad and the kind of unhurried manner that comes from training yourself to slow down in situations that want you to speed up. She spoke to Maya first, alone, for almost 20 minutes. Then she spoke to Dr. Abrams. Then she came to find me. I told her everything Maya had told me. I told her about the prior incidents, the pushing, the bruise, the long sleeves. I told her about the 2 years of observation, the red flags I had noted and not acted on with sufficient force. She wrote it all down. Marcus was questioned in a separate area. I did not witness that conversation. I don't know exactly what he said. I know he left the hospital that night in the back of a police car, which I witnessed through the waiting room window, And I know that whatever expression was on his face when he got into that car was the first honest thing I'd seen from him. Diane and I sat with Maya until nearly 5 in the morning, until the cast was on and the paperwork was done and the social worker had come and gone. At one point, around 4, Maya fell asleep, sitting up in the chair beside her mother, her casted arm across her lap, her head tipped onto Diane's shoulder. Diane looked at me over Maya's head. "I saw it," she said quietly. "I saw things. She stopped. "I know. That doesn't make it okay." "No," I agreed. "It doesn't. I have to fix it." Her voice was very quiet, very steady. "I don't know how long that takes, but I have to." "You've got time," I said. "Start with telling her that." Diane looked down at her daughter's face. Maya, asleep, looked younger than 17. She looked like the child she'd been, the child she still was, in all the ways that matter. "I'm sorry," Diane said. "Not to me." She said it to Maya, quiet enough that maybe she thought Maya couldn't hear. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have seen it sooner. I should have believed you first." Maya, eyes still closed, reached over with her good hand and took her mother's. "There are things I can tell you about the months that followed, and things I cannot." Marcus Hale was charged. The legal process moved the way legal processes do, slowly, with paperwork, with continuances and rescheduled hearings. He entered a plea. There are consequences that followed from that plea that are part of the public record if you look. I will not detail them here. Some things satisfy me to know without needing to describe. What I can tell you is that Diane found a therapist, a good one, someone who specializes in exactly this kind of situation, and that she has done real work, the kind of work that takes more courage than most people credit, because it requires looking directly at things you spent a long time making yourself not see. Maya finished her junior year with a 3.9 GPA. Her wrist healed cleanly, the way Dr. Abrams said it would. She went back to dance in February, 7 weeks after the cast came off, and the first time I watched her in class, through the big window in the studio door, in that way grandparents do, she was entirely herself. Every cell of her, entirely itself. She called me the night before her senior year started, not at 2014 in the morning, but in the early evening, sitting on the back porch in the last of the August light. "Grandpa," she said. "Hey, kid. I just wanted to say something." A pause. "I knew you'd come. When I called, I didn't even think about it. I just knew." I sat with that for a moment. The way some things need to be sat with. "That's what I'm here for," I said. "That's always been what I'm here for." "I know." Her voice was warm, fully itself, uncomplicated in the way it had been in that football game photo. "I know that now more than I did before. I know it in a different way." Outside, the evening was doing what evenings in summer do. The light going long and gold across the yard, the neighbors' kids playing somewhere down the block, the ordinary sounds of a neighborhood being itself. I sat in it and let it be exactly what it was. "Tell me something good," I said. And she did. "I've been thinking lately about what it means to pay attention. Not the passive kind of attention, not just noticing things as they pass in front of you, but the active kind, the kind that costs you something, the kind that requires you to take seriously what you observe, to trust the tightness in your chest when something is wrong, to not talk yourself out of concern because concern is inconvenient, or because the picture someone is showing you is different from the picture you feel." I had 4 years of observations about Marcus Hale, 4 visits worth of something not being right. And I filed it away and told myself I was being a protective old man and let 2 more years pass. I don't say this to punish myself. At my age, I've learned that the thing most of us do with guilt is either carry it forever or dispose of it entirely, and neither is right. You carry it the right amount, long enough to learn what it has to teach you, and then you set it down and do better. What I did not do soon enough, I did eventually. I answered the phone. I drove 19 minutes at speeds I should not have been driving. I stood in a hospital corridor at 2:30 in the morning, and I did not look away from what a doctor was telling me, and I did not let the person who needed me most feel alone inside a story she wasn't allowed to tell. If you have someone in your life, a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, a child of any kind, and something is telling you to look closer, please look closer. Children do not call their grandfathers at 2014 in the morning for nothing. They do not cover bruises with long sleeves to protect the feelings of someone who is hurting them because they want to. They do it because they love you in their imperfect and enormous way, and they are trying to hold a world together that adults have made precarious. Believe them. Listen first. Ask questions. Sit with them in hospital rooms at 5 in the morning. Let them put their head on your shoulder and sleep. That's the whole job. All of it. That's everything.